If you think the bard is just music and jokes, you're already underestimating them. The bard isn't just the party's entertainer, they're the reason the party survives at all. Welcome back. This is The Bard.
Boots on stone, we lost the way. Who's the driver? Not today. Map is flipped in disarray. Level free, but tend to slay. Bought a sword with evil glow. Cleric healed, then burst, we know. Wizard spells all gone by noon. Rogues already looting soon.
So, you decided to become a bard. So, let's look into why you want to be a bard and what a bard really is. First of all, it's a full magic caster, but it's not a traditional one. So your main focus is to have control over chaos, and you have to enhance your allies. So your party, you're like your party's helper, and you get to manipulate the outcomes of most fights. So you're charisma based, remember that, and you dominate the dialogue, the negotiation, and the deception whenever that comes around. One of the bard's basic abilities is called bardic inspiration. In a nutshell, you get a bonus action. You get to give an ally or somebody in your party an additional die. Usually D6 to D12, it scales up. Okay, depends on what it is and who he's giving it to. That's usable on attacks. So your turns, say you take a turn and you miss, that miss turns into a hit. Let's say you use it on certain saves. You can avoid devastating effects if you were to like roll a nat 1, for instance. And you get to do skill checks. So you get to add those skill checks on like clutch moments during the story time. You can also give it to people before really big rolls. So you got to pay attention to what your party's doing at the table. It works best on like fighters, just to give them like multiple attacks. Rogues, one big gigantic single big hit, and for like casters, so they can make saving throws. So remember, it's not just a buff, it's timing. So you got to be well aware of what's going on during the campaign and well aware of how the rest of your party has been interacting during the game. Think of it as bardic inspiration doesn't necessarily make you stronger, it just makes you succeed when it matters. So let's go a little bit into this type of spell casting that bards actually do. So how bards actually fight. You gotta remember, you're not really built for any like raw damage type of like magic, okay? Your magic deals with like crowd control, disrupting something like an event or an attack, and positioning, like moving a character up, moving a character back, getting rid of them, bringing them in, that type of stuff. You got your key spells, right? Different types. So, for instance, for control, you got your hypnotic pattern spell and your hold person. Pretty self-explanatory. You have your support, which is like healing word, which is a bonus action, right? And you got utility, which is your disguise self or invisibility, etc. Or you can do like a debuff for yourself or your party. Basically, Bane spell or like dissonant whispers. And you also got to remember, bards win fights by removing enemies from combat or creating openings for your allies. So think of it as, let's say a wizard blows things up, right? But it's magic. A bard makes sure that they never, ever, ever get the chance to even attack. The bard has other abilities, such as Jack of all trades, which is pretty underrated, if you ask me. Basically, it adds half proficiency to everything you're not trained in. So everything that you don't have to like train up on. So you get half proficiency on initiative bonuses. You get to do random checks. Suddenly, that's reliable. You're not always going to be failing on them. And it makes the bard the ultimate backup plan. So if something doesn't work, you can always ask the bard to try. Because if no one else can do it, most likely the bard probably can. Then you focus on your expertise, right? So your skill dominance as a bard. You get double proficiency in certain chosen skills. So, for instance, persuasion. You can control conversations how you feel like, when you feel like. You have an advantage on deception. You can manipulate any outcome that you like. You can use stealth if you want to be sneaky. You can make all types of weird builds when it comes to stealth in the bard. And insight. You get to read enemies like a book and see what they're doing and what they're up to and what they're thinking. So this what makes bards the most dangerous outside of combat. Basically, your combat ends eventually, but the bard is always in control. As a bard, overall, you have to remember that you are the force multiplier in your party. You don't just replace the roles, you enhance them. For example, if you want to give something to your fighter, it enables them to hit harder and with inspiration. Let's say you want to help your rogue out. That'll help them land key attacks when necessary. You can help your cleric out, which will give them clutch saves every now and then. And if you want to help your wizard, you can just protect them. That's what you can do. You can buff them, put a shield, whatever you need to do so that they can do what they need to do in support of the party. So basically look at it as the bard increases the team's success rate when used properly. They don't just carry the team, they make the team unstoppable if used correctly. And you got your magical secrets, right? As a bard, you have access to any spell list. Some people can say that it's broken, but I say you just have a little bit more power than everybody else. So what? You get to fix the weaknesses in your party. So if you guys are really close and you figure out who has strengths and weaknesses, you can buffer those weaknesses as a bard. You can steal top tier spells like Counterspell, Fireball, Spirit Guardians. You can also do those spells if you want. So you can pick the spells that your party is missing. For instance, if you have a wizard and a warlock and they have a spell that they can't get to yet, sometimes you can have access to that spell that's missing and round out the rest of your party. So at high levels, and once again, if you keep playing, your character will get higher and higher. The bard becomes whatever the party needs. As with most other classes that we've been talking about, as you know, if you have a class, most likely your character has a subclass, and the bards also have subclasses as well. Let's look into them briefly. You have your lore bard, which is basically your ultimate support and control bard. It reduces enemy rolls with the cutting words spell. So basically, you weaken enemies before they can even act. Then you have your valor bard, which is kind of like your frontline hybrid type of bard. So you have armor and you have weapon usage along with your musical instruments, of course. So you can support, but you can stand in a fight and still deliver some damage. Then you have your swords bard, which is an agile melee type of fighter. So you have flourishes, which equals mobility plus damage boosts. So think of it as flashy, fast, and aggressive. Then you have your glamour bard, which is a master of battlefield manipulation. Basically, charm plus reposition of allies, move them up and down around the board. So you control movement and the flow of battle. And last but not least, you have your eloquence bard. You are a social butterfly god tier type of bard. Almost impossible to fail any type of speech checks. So you basically have the gift of gab. You can seduce what you want to seduce and basically win every time. So your wins are encounters before the combat even starts. Things to think about when you're trying to be a bard character. 1. Don't chase damage numbers. Don't try to chase like super high damage with your rolls and your attacks. Just not going to happen. All right. You got to think to yourself, who needs my help right now? Which enemy is the biggest threat? I need to nullify that threat right away. And how can I swing the momentum of this battle or this conversation or this threat, etc., etc.? Think of it as this way: you are the director of this play, not the actor. The rest of your parties are actors. Everyone else fights the battle. The bard decides how it goes. Let's go over a few common mistakes when playing as a bard. 1. You're playing the bard like a sorcerer or a wizard, focusing on high damage spells and whatnot. You're not a sorcerer or a wizard. You're a bard. Remember that. You also forget to use bardic inspiration, which we talked about earlier. That's a big ability. Use it wisely, use it often. Ignoring non-combat utility, which means there's going to be times when you're not going to be directly in combat. You're going to be engaging in conversations. You're going to be engaging in some types of other interactions that may choose and determine how the rest of the game goes. You're a very vital, important part of those types of conversations. Non-combat. Yes, you can fight with the best of them, but you also need to get along with the NPCs and whatnot. And last, not leaning into the charisma / social dominance part of your character. You are a bard. You sing, you play, you got magic, you naturally have charisma, you're naturally a wordsmith. Lean into that when you're playing. That's the reason why the bard is so popular. It gives you freedom of expression. You get to show your high creativity. You're always relevant in any situation, and you're strong in both combat and roleplay. Remember, the bard is in control. Always remember that. Next time on Dice Duarte's No Armor, No Weapons, No Problem. Next week, we explore the monk.